Good morning. Welcome to the Foreign Correspondents Club of Japan. This morning we changed the time, so thank you for coming earlier than originally planned. As I think everybody here knows that the financial support for Korean schools has been cut off by the Japanese government, and there has been protests by the Korean community, and some people, like one of our guest speaker, Komori-san, think this is not just a political decision, but shows some sort of deeply rooted racism in Japanese society, and that this should be regarded as an international topic. So they created a report by the Committee on the Elimination of Racial Discrimination in Japan. This is over there, so you can pick it up and read and get all the information you need. The same as the Korean schools as human rights issues, many documents in it for preparation, so I won't talk too long and give the words to our guest speaker. We have, first of all, Komori-san, who's Undersecretary General of the International Movement Against All Forms of Discrimination and Racism, and she is the coordinator of the delegation for this report. And she will begin. Then we have Kitamura Satoko-san, is a lawyer and dealing with discrimination. She might call you a bit about the law and legal things regarding to this. And last but not least, we have Wooki Kim. She attended one of the schools, so if you have any special questions to that, she could give you interesting answers, and she will talk especially about the situation of the schools. We plan altogether 30 minutes for the statements, and then we have another 30 minutes for questions. You might have a lot of them, I think. So please, come on, Sam.
Good morning. Thank you for the opportunity for us to speak before you. And as introduced by Mr. James, I am Megumi Komori from the NGO working for the elimination of the discrimination based in Japan. I would like to just give some of the general pictures of the issue of the Korean schools and discriminatory treatment of the government against the Korean community. The details will be given by my friends later. I'm talking about the convention, International Convention on the Elimination for the Discrimination of on the elimination of the racial discrimination. I'll call it a convention. It was acceded by Japanese government in 1995. And the convention is very much important for us, especially for the minority communities in Japan. The Article 1 of the convention prescribes the definition of racial discrimination as listed below. If you have the paper, then you'll find the definition of the racial discrimination and who are the covered by the convention in Japan. They include the first, of course, the resident Koreans and all the people residing in Japan who are from the former Japanese colonies and their descendants. This also includes the resident Koreans, migrant people and foreign residents, Black community, Ainu people, and Okinawa. According to the definition, the government should recognize like the black and Okinawan, Ryukyu Okinawans also covered by the convention. However, Japanese government has kept their position that they are not included in the convention. So the becoming the state party of the convention, it means that Japan has to implement what are prescribed in the convention. However, it has been a basic problem of Japan that Japan does not have any law to prohibit racial discrimination as prescribed in the Article 1 and Article 2, which you will find, I distributed the convention in English. And Article 2 clearly also states that the state party shall take all necessary means to combat and prohibit racial discrimination. To be the state party, all state parties have to submit periodic reports to the Committee on the Elimination of Racial Discrimination. I will call it the committee. Since becoming a state party, Japan has had submitted its periodic reports 3 times. That means that Japan has been reviewed of its implementation 3 times already by the committee. From the first review, NGOs like us and also the representatives of minority communities like Ms. Kim Wooki, and also the lawyers like Ms. Kitamura have been involved in the review because the committee cannot review only based on the report made by the government. It needs the report from the different views, including the civil society. So we have already submitted 3 times the NGO reports. And this is very much important. Not only the submitting the report, but also the all NGOs and the minority communities have been involved in the review committees. The last review of Japan just taken place August last month, and what was discussed by the committee during the last review will be given. The information will be given by 2 of my friends later. And from the beginning, the first and the second, third reviews, all these minority communities, including Korean communities, have been involved. In regard to the Korean community, from the first review, the committee expressed its concern over what happened in Japan against the children of the Korean school. And the second review, it also expressed and recommend express concern and recommend in regard to the very discriminatory treatment of the government to the Korean schools and other foreign schools. And it was also expressed during the 2010 review already about the very racist the attitude of the some the high-ranking officers of the government towards the Korean high school. So then we had the review in August. And these are, we believe that basically these issues are deeply related to the one is to the lack of the legal framework of Japan. Because if you become a state party, you are required to have some framework to really implement the convention. But Japan, it's been pointed out from the beginning that Japan does not have any law to prohibit racial discrimination. And it is also important that Japan does not have any institution to give the redress compensation to the victims of racial discrimination. These two, the lack, the absence of the legal system, really give a great impact to the minority communities in Japan. So I, as the NGO, member, NGOs, we are calling for the government to first implement, to enact the basic law to prohibit the racial discrimination, together with the setting up of this kind of committee to monitor what's happened on the ground. And also, as already said, this is not only the matter of the issue of the Korean schools, but this is the matter of the very the historical attitude of the government and of the country as a whole towards the Korean community. As you know, that's the history of the Japan. So you find the other recommendations in the recent the review. It is not only for the Korean schools, but like the issue of hate speech or the the pension for the certain groups of the Korean residents, or other issues like the some of the limitation to the qualified Korean professionals to be certain to engage in the certain position of the government. These have the same the root cause, and we have to keep working on the elimination of the discrimination, and also the realization of the convention and the recommendation made by the third from the viewpoint of the civil society. Thank you very much.
So, and next, Kitamura-san, she is vice chairman of the working group of the International Convention for the Elimination of Racial Discrimination, so she might give us some more information about the legal background.
Thank you very much. My name is Satoko Kitamura from Japan Federation of Bar Association. I would like to present about facts and laws surrounding the issue, but before doing that, please let me briefly mention about the third concluding observation. Please see the handout titled Korean Schools Funding as a Human Rights Issue, page 5. These are concluding observations by international human rights bodies. And I participated in the third session to review the Japanese government report on 20 and 21st in Geneva, August, Geneva. And members of the third Committee of the Elimination of Racial Discrimination apparently showed high interest in this issue during the session. And we can see it in the concluding observation as well. In paragraph 19, page 5, the top, of its concluding observation, the third CERD expressed its concern about this issue and recommended the Japanese government to revise its position and to allow Korean schools to benefit from high school tuition support fund. Also, in paragraph 33, the third indicated this recommendation as one of the most important recommendations and demanded the government to give detailed information in its next report on the specific measures taken to implement the recommendation. So now I would like to explain facts and laws surrounding this issue. On April 1st, 2010, the Act on Free Tuition at Public High Schools and the High School Enrollment Support Fund was passed under the DPJ administration. This act was intended to make public high schools tuition-free and to provide a support fund for students at private high school and students at foreign schools which are equivalent to high school. According to the ordinance for enforcement of the act, students of following three types of foreign schools are subject to support fund. First category was schools which could be confirmed to have the curriculum equivalent to a curriculum of a high school in its country through embassies and other official organizations. The second category was schools which were accredited by international evaluation organizations. And even if schools did not fall under first and second category, they could be designated by the Ministry of Education if such schools were recognized to have the curriculum equivalent to that of high school in Japan, regardless of whether diplomatic relations exist or not. That's the third category. The government decided that Korean schools did not fall under the first category due to its lack of diplomatic relations with DPRK. And Korean schools were not categorized into the second category either, since they are not classified as European or US international schools. Therefore, Korean schools requested the designation of the schools to be eligible for the support fund pursuant to the third category. The government delayed drawing a conclusion in response to the request by Korean schools for more than 2 years of the review. And in December 2012, LDP came to power again, and Mr. Shimomura, the then Minister of Education, stated at a press conference that due to lack of diplomatic relations with DPRK and a lack of progress of the abduction issue, he thought it seemed to be difficult to gain public understanding to designate Korean schools. On February 20, 2013, the ordinance was revised, and the third category, which had been the mere ground for Korean schools to apply for the support fund, was deleted. This revision made no room for Korean schools to be eligible for the support fund on the basis of matters which were totally irrelevant to the right to education of children. The Japan Federation of Bar Association announced its president's statement twice regarding this issue to demand the government not to unfairly exclude Korean schools from application of the free high school tuition policy, which is in the handout, page 1 and 2. First one was on 5th March 2010, and the second one was February 1st, 2013. However, as I mentioned, the government made a final determination to exclude Korean schools in February 20, 2013. As Japan Federation of Bar Association statement clearly pointed out, main purpose of free high school tuition policy is to contribute to the creation of equal educational opportunity by alleviating the financial burdens of high school education, which is also demanded by Article 28 of Convention of the Rights of the Child. The designation of high schools for foreign students should not be judged by diplomatic concern, but should be judged objectively through educational perspective. The exclusion of Korean schools is a discriminative treatment, which is prohibited by Article 14 of the Constitution of Japan. We should also note that the Convention of the Rights of the Child, as well as International Covenant on Civil and Political Rights, guarantee the rights to receive education with ethnic identity being maintained. Based on this legal perspective, there have been 5 lawsuits brought to Nagoya, Osaka, Hiroshima, Fukushima, and Tokyo District Court against the government. The important point is that this is not political issue, but human rights violation. Thank you very much.
So, and last but not least, we have Mrs. Kim. She is the only one who really attended a school like that.
Okay. My name is Kim Ugi. Thank you very much for coming today. Please look at the statement of Human Rights Association for Korean residents in Japan. No. Okay, so please look at the handout which Ms. Kitamura mentioned, which is titled Korean Schools Funding as a Human Rights Issue. Okay. So since the launch of tuition waiver program in 2010 that amounted to discriminatory exclusion of Korean schools, subsidies that had been granted to Korean schools until then was refused or cut by local governments, not the central government, but local governments in Japan. So please look at the page 8. There's the list of Japan's local governments which refused subsidies for Korean schools from 2010. So as you can see here, Tokyo started the cutting or refusing the subsidies for Korean schools. And until today, the 9 prefectural government, local governments, refused the subsidies for Korean schools. And so some of the parents of Korean schools gave up sending their children to Korean schools and sent them to Japanese schools, which is granted much more subsidies than Korean schools, although they did want their children to receive ethnic education in Japan. So this time, the third recommended the Japanese government to invite local governments to resume or maintain the provision of subsidies to Korean schools in paragraph 19, as you can see in page the 5, the same paragraph which Ms. Kitamura mentioned. Okay. So I think this means that the decisions of local governments to refuse subsidies for Korean schools are also the violation of right to education of Korean school children, which constitutes racial discrimination. So, and next, please look at the page 11. It is the extract of concluding observation by international human rights bodies. So, as you can see in this list, until now, not just this time, but until now, the Japanese government have been reiterated recommendations by several international human rights bodies to revise its policy, which infringes the right to education of Korean school children, such as the differential treatment between Korean school and other foreign schools on the requirements for university entrance qualifications, and the tax deduction system, and not taking any measures to stop violence against Korean school children. So the history of discriminatory policy against Korean schools by the Japanese government can be traced back to the compulsory close down of Korean schools, which occurred in 1948 to 1949, which has been called struggling for education in Hanshin district among Korean communities until today. So the history is going on. Discriminatory policy by the Japanese government is going on. So, and the recommendations relating to hate speech and hate crimes this time, the third recommended the Japanese government to, I quote, address the root causes of racist hate speech and combating, I quote, prejudices which lead to racial discriminations. I end the quote in paragraph 11. So I think this suggests that the third recognized the hate speech and hate crimes against Korean residents has not occurred suddenly in Japanese society, but the deep-rooted cause of hate speech has been remaining in Japan, which is the colonialism against Korea. The symbol of the colonialism by the Japanese government is exactly the official discrimination against Korean school students, and it has been the root cause of spreading hate speech and hate crimes across the Japanese society. So this is not the only my view, but so please look at the page 9. There's 2 editorials by the Japan Times, which was issued in 2013. So in that editorial, which is titled "Students Are Not Political Pawns." Please look at the last paragraph of this editorial. What happened in Machida is part of a bigger, very disturbing trend that is sweeping the country. Several prefectural governments have stopped subsidizing pro-North Korean schools. On February 20th, the Abe administration excluded pro-North Korean high schools from the government's tuition waiver program. These decisions should be reversed. It is wrong to use children as political pawns, and doing so will only fan anti-Korean discrimination in Japan. And in page 10, our association translated the editorial of Kanagawa Shimbun, which is issued on 26th July this year. So please look at the part of underlined. Korean schools have not only been excluded from the high school tuition waiver program, but the local subsidies from Kanagawa Prefecture, Yokohama City, and Kawasaki City have been discontinued. The head of the central and national governments have lost their rationality in denying subsidies to the schools on the basis of North Korea's abduction issue and nuclear testing. These diplomatic issues are not relating to students. They are synonymous to official discrimination, institutionalizing further discrimination, and at the same time, they further marginalized resident Koreans. And the last part, the Osaka High Court cited the International Convention on the Elimination of All Forms of Racial Discrimination in its ruling following the first trial. The convention states that the state party shall not permit public authorities or public institutions, national or local, to promote or incite racial discrimination in Article 4C. The recent hate speeches and acts of xenophobia have not appeared around the streets suddenly. The good judgment shown by High Court decision will only become a reality when we reflect on the history and eradicate the roots of discrimination. So most of Korean residents in Japan are those who are forced to live in Japan because of the colonial rule of Japan over Korean peninsula and their descendants. Originally, the Japanese government has the obligations to restore the original condition of Korean residents in Japan who are deprived their language, name, culture by Japan, by guaranteeing ethnic education of Korean residents, especially education in Korean schools. So our association demands the Japanese government to stop the discriminatory policy against Korean schools and guarantee the right to education of Korean school children immediately. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Exactly half an hour. Great. So questions, please, if somebody, please.
Hello, Isabel Reynolds from Bloomberg. Thank you for your presentation. I'd like to ask Ms. Kim Wooki, how do you feel that you benefited from attending the schools that you did? And in particular, how did that differ from attending a specifically South Korean school or a Japanese school? If you could.
Thank you very much. So there are many benefits for me attending Korean schools, but firstly, I can speak Korean language fluently now, because of the education in Korean schools. And secondly, I have the Korean identity, although I live in these the Japanese society, such as the hate speech occurs or many discriminations are occurring. So, for example, when I was a middle school student, I was attending school by bicycle for about 30 minutes, and one Japanese woman saw me like the very, how do I say, 敵対的なってなんて言うんですかね、hostile eyes. So I felt really, I was very feared, and I felt very anxious by the hostile atmosphere of her. But but I could learn Korean history and Korean culture by the Korean teachers, and I had many Korean friends in Korean schools. So if I went to the Japanese school then, I don't know, but I'm not sure, but I might be really not having the self-identity or self-confidence if I went to the Japanese school. And many my friends or Korean schools who went to Japanese school say so. So the most important thing, I think, is the ethnic identity of being Korean living in Japan. Thank you.
Well, thank you. Another question? Patrick.
Patrick Solnoy, Secretariat from Switzerland. You're calling for the Japanese government to implement the CERD. We all know that the current Japanese government is not really a champion of human rights. How high are your hopes that something will really change?
Well, it is very difficult the question to answer. But, I don't know. It could be a good the opportunity for the government or not. But like during the last session of the convention, the third, the government repeatedly expressed its intention to be the good for the foreigners. Considering the 2020 Tokyo Olympic for the to be a good host, the country, they would like to implement some the policies, and we don't expect much, but as you know, that's recently the LDP has set up the project team to make some of the draft regulations on the hate speech because of the big the voice of the public opinion, not only inside Japan but also the outside the country. So we could take this kind of an opportunity. Yeah, of course, we have to be very careful. So,
I personally am not so optimistic about human rights improvement, about at least with Abe administration, and especially with regard to the minorities' human rights, especially Korean minorities. There are a strong right-wing movement recently in Japan, as you know, to target the Korean minority, and hate speech is widespreading in Japan. And also there are many politicians who is anti-North Korean politicians in LDP, and they are supported by right-wing organizations, which is becoming stronger and stronger, using using internet very effectively. So I am not very optimistic.
But as you just said, you are not. Oh, sorry, Kim-san. Sorry, I will ask the question later. You did not answer this question.
韓国が出ることによってどれぐらい変わるかってどういう
まあ全般的に
効果があるか
日本の
人権状況
が
変わる可能性
あるかっていうのはね、これは
人権状況が
change the government.
So yeah, I'm also not very optimistic, but so 難しいですね。どのくらい変わるか。Yeah, that's okay.
Yeah, but I think that we have to we should not just remain ourselves to be optimistic. Now, of course, the situation is not good, not favorable for us, but we have to take any possible opportunity, chance to at least change something.
Let me try to bring in some optimism. Of course, you said that it has to do with the human rights issue. It's not a political question. But the Abe administration, you always mentioned, needs some success at the moment because they have the negotiations with North Korea about the abductee problem. So, and this could be political point, easy to show the North Korean government, okay, we do something to make you happy. So, do you really think it's not possible that this could be some part in the political game as well, and that the Abe administration, when they get some progress in the abducted problem, might think, okay, now we have to bring in something, and it would be an easy and symbolic act to show their own goodwill. You do not expect this to happen? 3.
In my personal opinion, so this issue has not to be treated like the political tool between the Tokyo and Pyongyang. So that's what we are saying to the third, and the third expressed concern about that point, I think. So let me introduce the extract of Q&A by members of the third and the Japanese delegation during the examination of Japan in page 6. So our association prepared this document, and so many, 1/3 of members of the committee mentioned about this issue during the examination. And so about this issue, the Ministry of Education of Japan answered we are not discriminating against the Korean school children. So we examined these Korean schools, and we could not confirm so we could not designate the Korean schools and so on. But at the last point, at the last part, the member from the Mauritius, Mr. Yuan, said like this: please look at the page 7, and the last part, which is underlined. We've heard from one of the officers that after inquiry, it was found that those schools, the Korean schools, didn't meet the criteria. And what was the criteria? That those schools were pro-Pyongyang? But basically, we are here, basic questions which is being proposed. Is it not a question of discrimination, racial human rights? at the end of the day, we're going to be the persons who are going to suffer. It's going to be those students attending the schools. And it is in that perspective that we are saying there is a discrimination. There may be so many reasons, political and so many other reasons, but the basic problem for us and the why they catch for us is that we are saying that we feel that this is a question of breach of human rights of discrimination. So I totally agree with him. So I think, yeah, thank you.
Komori-san, are you optimistic politics might change the attitude, or is it so deeply rooted? This is really, as you said, it's not a political topic between the two countries, and so we'll go on like it is.
You mean that what is the question? So,
That's really, it's not just a question of human rights, but that the Abe administration needs is for political negotiations, that they really might think we could give you the money if we get our abductees.
Well, I think they are taking advantage of the situation or position of the for example, the North Korean government, and basically the attitude of the present government, especially Abe administration, has been very nationalistic and repeatedly the member of the cabinet of the president of the administration or former the LDP before the Democratic Party's the ruling party the government. That's occasionally the cabinet member or high-ranking the officer of the government came out saying that to deny the history of the colonialism of the war. So I think that yes, they are playing the political game, but the fundamentally they've been the same, and they are taking advantage. That what I think.
Can I add one more thing? So, in that regarding the question, so in 2013, in February, the Japanese government decided completely to exclude Korean schools, and in the same year, so please look at the page 12. The concluding observations by the CESCR, the Committee on Economic, Social, and Cultural Rights. So the CESCR recommended the Japanese government like this in paragraph 27. So it was held in Geneva in May 2013. The committee is concerned at the exclusion of Korean schools from the state party's tuition fee waiver program for high school education, which constitutes discrimination. Recalling that I omit here, and the committee calls on the state party to ensure that the tuition fee waiver program for high school education is extended to children attending Korean schools. And after that, even though the Japanese government explained that as the grounds of exclusion of Korean schools, the lack of abduction issue, the lack of progress of the abduction issue. But after this recommendation, recently the Japanese government did not even mention about the abduction issue for the exclusion of Korean schools. Because maybe I think the Japanese government recognizes that the political reason is not rational reason for excluding Korean schools. So I think the Japanese government has been starting to explain by the examination, the examination standard, or the content of education of Korean schools. So it is the Japanese government has been omitting the not saying the abduction issue as a reason for exclusion of Korean schools.
So please.
I'm sorry for my ignorance. I just want to confirm a couple of points. So there are schools associated with, specifically with South Korea in Japan, and they receive subsidies from the government. Is that correct? Yes, you're nodding. Okay, good. I just want to reiterate my earlier question. Could you explain to me how you benefited from going to a school that was specifically oriented to North Korea rather than South Korea? Couldn't you have gone to a South Korean school, and which would still get the subsidies? Wouldn't you have got the same benefits in terms of language and culture?
Thank you. So I have not attended so-called South Korean school, but so it is a little bit difficult to answer. But so historically, the Korean school was established by Korean residents in Japan right after the World War II, and so the origin of, so you mentioned the North Korean schools, but I think ethnic Korean schools. The origin of ethnic Korean schools is established then. There was no South Korean school then. So I think the origin of Korean schools is, which you mentioned, the North Korean school, and so, and then the Korean school was established before the DPR Korea and RO Republic of Korea was established, so, because the Korean school was established in 1946 or so. So, but no government and no people gave financial assistance for the Korean schools in the past. And so South Korean government has never granted any subsidy or assistance for Korean schools even today. But in late 1950s, DPR Korea financially assisted Korean schools for the first time, and the DPR Korea government has been repeating the financial assistance like hundreds of times. I'm not sure, but until today. So the Korean schools is, and also me is very feel close to the DPR Korea, because if the assistance, there was no assistance from any government, the Korean schools was not could not be continued until today. So, but this now it is we are in a really critical point, because the Japanese government and local governments has been repeating this discrimination and financially. So yeah, thank you.
So please send Patrick next.
Thank you for the briefing. My name is Seon Lee from Yonhap News Agency. Hashimoto Doru, the mayor of Osaka, says that he thinks that we can solve the problem of hate speech by means of legal lawsuit, and they expect that Osaka City will make special rules to support the expense to take legal actions against hate speech. So, do you think it will be effective to prevent hate speech? How do you think about this? And then there is no rules in Japan against to punish hate speech. So how do you think about this? Do you think we need make rules against hate speech? And some politicians says that they will ruin the freedom of expression. So how do you think about these issues? Especially I want Kitamura will answer these questions, and anyone else can answer. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Mayor Hashimoto's idea sounds very interesting, and it would be somehow helpful to stop hate speech or to encourage people to fight against hate speech. But yes. And the second question is, but I think that the central government has to do something like that. And about the punishment against hate speech, it is a very controversial issue. And within Lawyers Association, we cannot reach one conclusion. Even lawyers has not reached one conclusion about how to define hate speech and how to punish hate speech. Because if we make a law to punish hate speech with a broad definition, especially with criminal sanction, the arbitrary government may use this law to attack the justifiable freedom of speech. So we must be very careful to define hate speech, especially when we prepare the criminal punctions. And within Lawyers Association, there are many lawyers who are against to have the criminal sanction. And so we are still discussing how to define, how to make effective regulation against hate speech. But at least in the situation in Japan that we have no specific laws of anti-racial discrimination, it means that this nation has not announced that we are against racial discrimination. The government says that we have a constitution which prohibit discrimination, and also people can use civil law, the tort law, to regulate the hate speech. But existing law doesn't prohibit the hate speech the existing law only prohibits hate speech against specific individual people. So if people say that kill North Koreans, but North Koreans are not identified, if the North Koreans are not identified, this is not illegal. So that's the limit of the existing law. So we must make a law, and all lawyers agree that hate speech must be stopped, but we are still discussing how to stop it. Thank you.
Okay, I just want to say the two things. The one is about the recent the announcement of the Mayor Hashimoto in Osaka City. Yes, it could be helpful, could be, but it is just for the civil suits, the civil law court. I think to bring the case to the civil court, you have to clearly identify how you are the damaged or the human rights are violated. And for victims of the hate speech, it is usually the Koreans. It is very difficult to bring the case to the court because you have to repeat how you suffered, what they said, or something like that. It is really the traumatic process of the victims, I think. And it is only so I don't know how it could be help or encourage. And second thing is about the freedom of expression. It was also mentioned repeatedly during the last session of the third that the freedom of expression is not only guaranteed for the racist groups, but also it is guaranteed for the minority groups. Because of the hate speech on the street of Shin-Oku or Tsuruhashi in Osaka, you see that they are just suppressing the freedom of speech of the minority groups. That is very much important. And also, the committee members also pointed out all those yelling and the speech, the hate speech, being made on the street. It is not the matter of the freedom of speech. It is out of the scope of the freedom of speech. It is the violation in the verbal violation. Yes. Okay.
I have another question for Ms. Kim. I've never been to a Korean school, I must openly admit, and we hear many things about how bad these schools are supposed to be. You were there. Could you tell us a little bit about the daily life in these schools? What do you learn? What is your curriculum? What do you hear about Kim Il-sung, Kim Jong-il, Kim Jong-un, and so forth, or the start of the Korean War? Give us a little bit of an impression what it is to go to a Korean school, please.
The daily life. So the school curriculum is more or less same as the Japanese schools, but there are another Korean subjects, Korean language subject or Korean history subject, and but we don't. I learned Japanese history and Korean history, and so if I divide into two, DPR Korea, not DPR Korea, but Korean Peninsula history, both of them. So, 何を答えたらいいんだろう。So I learned the history of. What would you like to ask, especially?
Maybe if I may support a bit and help. I think he wants to know, these schools are regarded close to North Korea, and you said you have some feeling of gratitude because they financed the school, so some attitude near to North Korea. I think the question was, how far do you learn the, let's say, North Koreans' point of view on politics? So is Kim Jong-un and people like this, is this a topic at the school or not? This, I think, was the question. How far is the North Korean government influencing the curriculum? This, I think, is the question.
Okay, hold on, please. So I think these explanation by the JFBA is really accurate for explaining Korean schools. So could you please look at the page 4? So,
last two paragraphs in page 4. Committee and at the third committee in the concluding observations in 2010 by third committee, it expressed the Korean schools as North Korean schools. So JFBA pointed out that North Korean schools is not accurate expression because government the timetable is different from DPRK high school timetable, and the curriculum is determined not by DPRK but Korean residents in Japan. So DPRK does not operate the North Korean schools, and they are independent from North Korean government. Is that the answer?
Before you start the follow-up, you can just we already run out of time. So do you agree with a few more minutes?
Yes.
Okay. So in this case, Patrick has his follow-up, and then there was the last question over there with the gentleman. Yes, but okay.
No, well, what I'm interested in, when I read KCNA, the official news agency from North Korea, well, South Korea is the most evil place in the world. I don't want to quote what former President Lee Myung-bak was called or President Park Geun-hye are called. Really things which show a lot of hatred. Is hatred against South Korea being taught in North Korean school?
No hatred.
So what do you learn about South Korea?
So how the Republic of Korea established and like the 民衆闘争ってどういうんだろうthe democratic struggle of the Korean people of occurred in like Gwangju in 1980s and the 民主化闘争ってそうですね democratic struggle which occurred in the Republic of Korea. So, especially I was a high school student in 1999 to 2002. So in 2000, the top conference between North and South was in 2000. Is 2000, So we learned very positive content of between the relationship between Pyongyang and Seoul. So I think you might imagine the bad or negative content of school education in in Korean school, but I don't think it is the bad content. I learned a very positive aspect of history of the Republic of Korea. So I have many friends from living in or came from the Republic of Korea.
Just information that the many parents with the South Korean passport in Japan also send their children to the Korean schools. Yes.
So, last question.
David Satterwhite, an associate member, but thank you very much for raising this issue to our attention. I noticed on page 7 of the materials, the arguments presented by the Ministry of Education, Mr. Mori, really deserve a careful read because on the one hand, he is saying that the policies of the local governments are not determined by the central government, but on the other hand, clearly there was central government guidance, and you mentioned Minister of Education Shimomura, I think, in 2012, came out publicly with regard to opposing or stating the government's opinion that the North Korean schools, the schools associated with Jonghyun, were not eligible for, did not appear to be eligible for. And so there's something of a contradiction. That's the background. Second, I noticed that the list on page 8 has from Tokyo down to Yamaguchi. Are there, we'll say, pro-North Korean schools in other prefectures still being supported by the local prefectural governments? And then the real questions are the following. Is there any effort to initiate a dialogue directly with the Minister of Education and any supportive Japanese politicians who would distinguish between the political issues and the support on educational issues? That's first. And second, would go with that. If there are prefectures that have come out very clearly supportive to continue budgeting and paying subsidies to the North Korean school, pro-North Korean schools, could there not be a coalition effort of those prefectures who are supportive and continue to raise this issue to the national government, both to the Minister of Education and to the prefectures that have made this unfortunate decision. Thank you.
So I would like to confirm the first question is is there any effort to dialogue with the Ministry of Education? Yes. So for example, so many of Korean residents demanded the Ministry of Education, so the officers of Ministry of Education during these 4 years, like Korean school students or Korean the university students or parents of Korean schools or Japanese citizens which supports the Korean schools, or the university professors, the Japanese professors which goes in university professors, or and also the South Korean the citizens from Republic of Korea demanded the Ministry of Education to apply the tuition waiver program for Korean schools. So we have been making the coalition between during the Japanese society and also with the Society of Republic of Korea, and so first question, and the second question. So these are the there are 27 local governments which grants the subsidies for Korean schools, and in those 27, and all those local governments was used to grant the subsidies, but the 1/3 local governments cut the subsidies, and so maybe I don't think the coalition between the other local governments have been made, but they are. I imagine that those local governments which continues to grant subsidies to local Korean schools has been really struggling because there are many oppositions to give the subsidies for Korean schools from the anti-Korean citizens. Recently, they have been gaining power more and more, so it is very hard struggling for us and for the local governments, maybe, I imagine. Thank you.
Yeah, not for the first question. That I think that there has been no political initiatives among the politicians or to say something against the policy of the present policy of the Japanese government. I think that we have never heard. And as Wooki mentioned, that the internet also helps them. I mean, that's the racist groups to attack, pinpoint. For example, if one local government says something for the Korean schools, maybe they pinpoint. They just send the threatening emails, and they make just small things very big. So that is also the threatening and just to give the negative impact.
So time is over, more than over, as I see. So thank you very much for giving us all the information. It was very interesting, and we have the tradition in this club that guest speakers get a 1 year free honorary membership. So whenever you want, you are welcome to join for coffee or whatever you prefer, or ginseng. Or
Thank you.
So Kitamura-san, please.
Thank you very
much.
Thank you.
Yes. And yes, give our guest speakers a warm applause, and hope to see you again somewhere when you can tell us about the rising subsidies for Korean schools. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you very
Thank you
much.
very much. Thank you.